Welcome, welcome. I am so grateful you have tuned into the Keeper of the Home podcast. I'm Cami, your host and creator of the blog and channel TIDBITS Company. Now today we are talking about rest for homemakers. Oh, rest, glorious rest. Now, despite what some people may think, we know that it can be very difficult to find opportunities to rest as the keepers of our home. My hubby loves to joke that a homemaker just sits at home on the couch eating bonbons and watching soap operas. But we know better than that, don't we? And in fact, I think I've showed him since we brought him home to kind of work on our family businesses. And he has had the opportunity to share in this role as keeper of the home with me. Now he jokes about my bullwhip and that his previous boss did not work him near as hard. So our work is a full job as keepers of the home. No matter what we have on our plates, there is so much to do. And we know that if we get the opportunity to rest, it's a very special and sacred opportunity. Now, here's the thing. When those precious opportunities come to us to find some rest, we have to be sure we are not wasting them. We need to make sure that the things that we are doing in that rest time are actually very rejuvenating and replenishing. So let me just toss around some ideas for you today to help you think on what you can do to make the most of your rest. But first, of course, we have some housekeeping items to take care of. I am launching, or maybe I've already put it out there in the world, but I am working on a lot of gift guides for the season. And I know you guys probably get flooded with gift guides on social media and in your inbox. But here's the thing, I'm pretty picky about my gift guides if I do them. I don't do them every year, but I like to actually give you guys ideas for things that we actually have and own and love. I will not put things on there that are just good ideas. My gift guides are the things that I have found valuable enough to actually purchase and have really enjoyed them and find them useful for you and great gift ideas. So I'm very, very picky what goes on these gift guides and I want them to be helpful. So if you just need some ideas, please check out tidbitsandcompany.com, which is my blog where these gift guides will be hosted. And if they're not on there yet, make sure you're subscribed for my newsletter because they'll be going out through the holiday season and as I create them. So make sure you're signed up and we'll get notified when those are out. I also have a collection of vintage winter art on my shop page. If you love vintage art as much as I do, there are many prints there for you to select, print out for very affordably and put them around your home. You can frame them, you can make them into like ornaments or gift cards or whatever creative ambitions you have, but I have curated a bunch of vintage winter art that you might enjoy. So you can go to tidbitsandcompany.com, click over to my shop page, and in the menu you'll see vintage art that you can check out. I even have some that are like for your phone, if you want some pretty vintage art for your home screen or your desktop, or if you happen to have a TV that can display art, I have resized that vintage winter art for those things. So super fun. I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And then on the shop, I also have linen ribbon, which is so beautiful. And again, our linen products will be discontinued for some time. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law basically needed to stop sewing for me, and I can't figure out how to replace them as of right now. So as of right now, all the linen items are going to not be produced for some time. So if you see something on there, grab them. Linen stockings are going fast. They're so beautiful, you guys. When you get them in your hands, the quality is just better than anything on Pottery Barn. I promise you, they're so beautiful. And then the linen ribbon is stunning to hang on wreaths, to wrap your gifts, whatever you want to do with ribbon. My girls love to tie it in their hair during the winter time. It's so pretty. All right, that's all the housekeeping items I have for you. So I did think it was kind of funny that we are talking about rest as we're gearing up for the holiday season, right? As homemakers, this can be a busy season, even though the weather is telling us to slow down and hibernate, which I've always felt was a little contradictory. But nevertheless, here we are, holiday season, and we still need rest. It may be even more important than normal to make the most of the precious time that we get to actually rest our bodies and our souls. Now, I chose my title for this podcast very carefully. It is the best things a homemaker can do to find rest. And there are good things, there are better things, but there are some things that are best. And this is what I want you to think about, and how awesome that best rhymes with rest, right? So there is a talk that was given by Dallin H. Oaks, who is a presidency of the church I belong to, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he gave this iconic talk that we refer to so much, and it is called Good, Better, Best. And I will link that talk for you if you want to check it out. It is just so good. It gives you so much food for thought, and I highly recommend the listen. Maybe even after you listen to this podcast, you can go and listen to that and get yourself grounded in this principle even more. But he said a few things in here that I just want to quote him, because I can't say them any better. So I'm going to read a few paragraphs and get us on the right page for thinking about when we have time to rest, what is best. So he said, we have to forgo some things in order to choose others that are better or best. Most of us have more things expected of us than we can possibly do. As breadwinners, as parents, as church workers and members, we face many choices on what we will do with our time and other resources. We should begin by recognizing the reality that just because something is good is not a sufficient reason for doing it. The number of good things we can do far exceeds the time available to accomplish them. Some things are better than good, and these are the things that should command priority attention in our lives. Of course, it is good to view wholesome entertainment or to obtain interesting information, but not everything of that sort is worth the portion of our life we give to obtain it. Some things are better and others are best. And I just really love what he said there, and it gives you just so much food for thought. And honestly, I feel like I could do an entire other podcast about the good, better, and best things that we could do as homemakers. But today I do want to focus on the best things that we can do in those sweet opportunities of rest. Because when we make the most of those moments where we can rest, I find that makes me more productive in the times where I need to work, and definitely more pleasant for those around me, and just my attitude about everything. I'm just a more pleasant person to be with when those moments of rest are really taken advantage of. It can sometimes be a challenge to approach every day as a homemaker with a good attitude, but it is so much easier when we are resting to make sure that it's nourishing to our minds and bodies and souls, so that we can really recognize how sacred and precious our role is as keepers of the home. Now, before I share my ideas with you of the best things, at least for me, that I can do, I want you to remember that, of course, everything is relative, right? What is my best rest may not be yours. But by sharing these ideas and these thoughts, I really just hope it helps you to become more aware so that you can think about the best things for you. But I do think it's worth a minute of our time to mention a few things that are perhaps good, but not best, okay? So let's go there. Here are some good things that you could do when you find a moment of rest. You might feel good to sit and scroll social media. It might feel good to tune into a good show and to stay up late watching it. You might even like to binge watch some of your favorite YouTube channels. I recommend TIDBITS Company if you feel like binging. Sorry, shameless plug there. And it might even feel really good to bring to those events like a tub of ice cream or maybe like a bag of chocolate chips if that's all you got, and to hide in the bathroom and just take this moment of rest with a sweet treat. Those things might be really good. And, you know, depending on the day, that might be all you can muster up. However, there are maybe better and best things that we do that actually rejuvenate our souls. So here's what we need to ask ourselves when we're tempted to just kind of do the easy things or the things that are really tempting in this world, right? Social media, they know how to addict us. But we have to ask ourselves these things about our rest time to be able to decipher really and discern what is best for us. So ask yourself these things. How do I feel after these activities? Am I refreshed, rejuvenated, and inspired? Or am I more tired, maybe foggy-brained, maybe less motivated or irritable after I do these things? Those are really important questions, and maybe I'll even type them up for you in the description so that you can maybe write them out yourself and consider. I know for myself, it is easy to open up Instagram and get sucked in there when I just have a minute or two, or when I'm avoiding something difficult, right? That's actually usually when I pick up social media, when there's a task at hand that's going to be challenging for my brain, which is not helpful. And you got to be really mindful of that. But I know like the way social media is built now, especially with video, it is so overstimulating. And even though I might feel like I need to just numb out for a minute and enjoy that, and maybe I do find things that are inspiring or entertaining, but I don't ever feel super great after consuming that content for a length of time. I usually get that foggy brain or like come away feeling way unmotivated to do anything else. So those are things that I've had to become very mindful of so that I don't partake too much in that type of rest. All right, so I'm going to just share my best rest ideas for you. These are the things that work for me, that I would absolutely love it if you would take a minute. And if you're not already on this platform, but on my TIDBITS Company YouTube channel is where I host the video podcast for the Keeper of the Home podcast. So if you get some ideas while I'm sharing these, please go into the comment section of that video on YouTube and let us know your ideas, because you may be thinking about something that I maybe wouldn't even have thought about, or that someone that goes and visits these comments might realize that would be a really good idea for them when they need to rest. So please, please, please leave us your comments and your ideas of what rejuvenates and refreshes and rests your mind, soul, and body. I would absolutely love to hear. But these are the things that work for me. Going for a walk outside. Doesn't matter the weather. I do this in the winter and in the summer. Any time of the year, going for a walk and getting outside is like food for my soul and so refreshing and restful to me. And it really depends. I got to be super in tune with my body. Sometimes it's a brisk walk that is actually rejuvenating. And sometimes I need to just go really slow because I'm feeling a bit bogged down. But doesn't matter the pace, the season of the year, getting outside and going for a walk is like my rest. It is not my exercise. Exercise to me is, lifting weights, doing workout videos, but a walk out in nature is absolutely rest for my soul, and I need it almost every day. And it really is a reset for me. In fact, I find it really helpful to go on a walk. Of course, I love morning walks, but it's really helpful to just go, even if it's just like 5 or 10 minutes, to help myself transition. So if I have like work hours, if I can go for a walk before I come back in and snap into the homemaking Cami, it is just a really good transition to kind of like let the thoughts go, let that task that I was consumed in just go, and then I can be more like fully in the next part of my day that I have to do. So it's a great transition and just this like middle rest for me throughout my day. I love it. And sometimes I need a walk by myself to rest. I need to clear my head. Sometimes my walks are like opportunities to pray and talk to my Heavenly Father. And other times it's really restful to bring a kid or a spouse with me on a walk. Just really depends on what my body needs that day. But I find walks super, super restful. Just being out in nature in general, if it's not a walk, if I just need a moment to breathe, just getting out in that fresh air, I'll go out and look at my herb garden, maybe clip some herbs and then make some herbal tea, or go out in the garden and see what's grown. Just like this minute out there to just observe and to be quiet and allow my brain to just process what I've been doing all day is so restful. Even sometimes like a really light chore outside, like maybe sweeping off the porch, or I don't know, picking some tomatoes for dinner. Just like a light outdoor chore can be super restful and just feels like total self-care. I also love to just sit on the porch. That's usually like my end of the day thing. Just go out there on the porch on a rocking chair. I do not bring my phone. If I bring my phone, it doesn't feel restful. If I'm just out there looking at our beautiful view or bringing a kiddo to sit on the porch and chat with, or my husband, it's just absolutely wonderful rest for me. I love to read if I get the opportunity to rest. There had been so many years in my life where I did not read books. I didn't read novels. I didn't pick up anything like physical that wasn't like on a screen. I would read blogs. That's what I would tell people, which is enjoyable. But something just has come back to me when I have realized that there is absolute rest in just opening up a good book and soaking into that moment. Now, I have to be careful because some reading is not best. I enjoy self-help books. I enjoy educational nonfiction type books, maybe like homesteading books or books about herbs where I get to learn. Sometimes those are great. But if I'm like just completely wore out mentally, physically, I prefer or find like a very uplifting novel, like maybe Anne of Green Gables, something along those lines, to pick that up and read it, and just fills my soul, makes me feel really good. And I find that a very fulfilling, restful activity. I also love decor magazines. That is absolute rest and inspiration for me. Any kind of like short story. We have a lot of books in our home from the Well-Educated Heart that are full of short stories that are really inspiring. Those are great to bring if I'm looking for rest. I love inspiring biographies to just learn about people. Those are the things that really fill me up. I'm just speaking for myself here, but I find that like reading books on screens or tablets are just don't really quite do the trick for me. That might be different for you, but it's something about that physical book flipping pages that is my rest. Okay, moving on. Creating is also a type of rest for me, but I have to be careful and I have to protect what I'm creating. If I'm looking for rest, I'm not creating for you guys. I'm sorry. But this is the type of creating that is just to fulfill that creative spirit that is in me, that I have just burning inside of me. I love to create. So that might be something like just going out and clipping some flowers or doing an arrangement that I am not going to share online. You guys are not going to see these things. They're probably my best work, but I have to protect those things that I create that are just for me, just to fill my cup. I really protect that from you guys. And I hope you do as well. I hope there are things that you create that are just to fulfill that part of you. It is so restful for me. I'd like to actually nature journal. I have a couple of nature books where I'll just copy down poetry that I find, or if I find like a beautiful plant, I'll press it and put it in this nature journal. That act is very, very restful for me, and I truly enjoy it, and I protect that for myself. Any type of journaling is also very restful if I just need to get thoughts out. Prayer journaling is something I enjoy doing. I like notebooking, which is like learning about maybe a historical figure or an ancestor and just printing out a picture of them and then writing some things that they've said. I have this notebook, and I encourage my kids to do it as well, where I just compile those things just to like hold dear and remember. That's actually a very restful activity for me when I feel like creating. I have herb books where I learn about herbs, and those are just they are things that I love to learn about, and it's actually fun and exciting and inspiring, and so that is a restful activity for me as well. Now, cooking in the kitchen and creating food can be restful for me as well. There are some times where it's like, no way, cooking is not my rest. Get me out of the kitchen. Maybe you feel the same, but then there are other times where that is actually a restful activity. I would say I love like creating really nourishing soups, or maybe simple baked goods like healthy muffins or banana bread, something that is like really familiar. And that I know is just going to be super nourishing for my body and for my family. Those are the things that I find actually restful to make in the kitchen. I find it restful to feed my sourdough, to stretch and fold a beautiful sourdough loaf of bread. Those things that are super familiar feel really good. Other times I might find that I'm craving to do something more creative in the kitchen, and that can be exciting, but most of the time it's that familiar, nourishing food that actually provides rest for my soul. Now, it's possible that you have a whole slew of homemaking tasks to do when you actually feel you need rest, but you have to show up and maybe cook dinner, laundry, dishes, whatever it is. But we can actually find more rest in those activities by bringing in things that are supportive. For me, that is something like soothing classical music. I turn that on while I have to do dishes, and something about it just sets a different tone in our home and just fills something inside of me. Soothing music can just do wonders. Even if you can't like actually lie down and rest, it can still be a rest for your mind. Sometimes I love to listen to podcasts while I do these things, but when you're just really craving rest, maybe think about something else. Don't add more noise per se, but add thoughtful noise that will actually fill your soul up. Now, maybe I should have mentioned this one in the very beginning because it's kind of a no-brainer, but if you're needing rest, take a nap. Or make sure you get like 9 or 10 hours of sleep that night. I think most of the time a nap or extra sleep is probably the most important thing for us, especially if we're feeling really bogged down and tired and exhausted. I don't think there's any, issue in this world that can't be solved by a good nap. So definitely just don't forget the obvious. When you need rest, take a nap. A lot of times when I need or I'm craving rest, it's really just kind of a rest from my everyday scenery. So I like to change out that scenery. One day I was particularly feeling this need, and I just told the kids, hey, let's go down to the park. Well, it was a very interesting stream of events that happened after that. So I had brought a book just with the mentality that I was going to sit on the bench and read a book while the kids played and ran around or did whatever. But what ended up happening was I had some of the moms text me, and their kids wanted to play with my kids, so they came and picked them up from the park, and I was left alone at the park, which has like never happened ever. But instead of going home, I'm like, you know what? I came to the park to read, so I'm going to read. So I sat there for an hour or more reading a beautiful novel called Nearby. If you've never read it, it's a great book. But I just sat at the park by myself, total different scenery. Hadn't done this probably since my college years. But it was the most rejuvenating thing for me to take a book to a different place of scenery and just enjoy that moment by myself. It just filled my soul. It was so wonderful. So it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to spend money. Just get out of your everyday environment and bring a book and see what happens. And this one is just probably like my absolute favorite way to rest. And that is going on a date with my husband. We go out to eat, even if there's like errands that have to be run, just like that act of being with my best friend in this whole world and treating ourselves to a meal that we didn't have to cook is total rest. It is how I get through the week. Most of the time is knowing that we've scheduled a date to go out to be together. That is my favorite way to rest, like hands down. All right, then this suggestion might actually not be one that you think about, because if you're a parent, especially if you have littles that keep you busy during the day, you might think about your rest as needing to be separate from them. But I want to challenge you. Sometimes when we're just needing a rest, bringing our kids along with that and what we choose to do can be so wonderful for everyone. It provides rest for your kids. They get to see you taking a moment to rest and enjoy that with you. It can be such a connecting experience. And I find a lot of times when I have this like conflicting feeling in my soul of wanting to be more present with my kids, but also feeling depleted, actually bringing them near me to maybe read a story or go do something fun or create something together. That togetherness is actually what my soul is needing more than being away from them and resting. If you listen to my last podcast on the problem with alone time, I think this brings it back, that can actually be more fulfilling and inspiring and alleviate some of that guilt that we might get when we fill our days with things that don't include our children. Because as parents, I think we just have this innate desire to be with and to teach our children, and it's okay to consider being with them as restful and find the things that actually fill that need. Is there anything sweeter than taking a little one on your lap and cuddling them and talking to them or reading something with them and bringing joy to them? That really, I just can't imagine anything sweeter. So don't forget that you can rest with your kids. Now, for us, we've also designated a day of the week to be the day of rest, which is, of course, the Sabbath Sunday for us. And I like to view that day as definitely a rest from the everyday grind of work and school and all of that. So it is so good to have a day of rest. I literally do not know how I would get through Monday through Saturday without knowing that there was the Sabbath. So we really protect that day. We even protect it from too much recreation. It's just a day to rest our souls and our bodies. But sometimes that looks like getting together with extended family and enjoying a meal together. Even though there's noise and busyness in that, there's something about just being with the people you love the most in the world. Sometimes family gatherings are not all that restful, especially if politics get in the conversation, right? But I think it can be quite a wonderful way to rest on the Sabbath. And I really look forward to maybe that like once a month where we get to do that. And I'll just end up my ideas here with just saying, is there really anything more restful for our souls than to worship and to immerse ourselves in the Word of God and to be with Him in prayer, or to go to church? For us, we have temples that are places of very peaceful, restful worship that I just treasure. And I don't know how I would live in this world with all the news that is so upsetting and the struggles and health challenges and all of it. I just don't know how I do that without finding rest in the Lord. And for me, that's what it all comes down to, and that's what my soul longs for. And I need to find daily things to make sure that I find that rest with the Lord. It is very, very important for me. I just want to also wrap up here. You guys have heard me bring this up so many times, that as women, we also need to be very aware of our monthly cycle and the different things during that cycle that actually help us find rest. And this is a whole other topic on itself, but I just want to bring out this awareness so that you can start tracking and journaling and being more aware of the things that actually help you rejuvenate throughout the month. So the follicular phase, which is right after you bleed, this is when we're getting this like new cell development, new blood development, and I think you'll find that you're craving newness in that stage. And so when you're thinking about the things that bring you rest, try to like think about getting out of your norm. This is when, like what I talked about, like changing your scenery would be really helpful during the follicular phase. One time, so I said I love my daily walks, but one time my husband said, why don't we like drive up to your mom's and walk up the canyon? I have never done this walk probably since my childhood. And to just like see new scenery and the beautiful canyon and just that newness. It took something I always do, but gave myself a new environment. It was soul filling. It was so wonderful. So think about that in your follicular phase. But in your ovulatory phase, this is kind of your social phase. You have the most energy. You're feeling great. It's short-lived, 3 to 5 days, ladies. Make the most of it. But this is when your rest might actually involve others, when your rest might include your kids or your spouse, or go out with some friends. That can be so rejuvenating and restful. The luteal phase, which is next, is the one where you may find yourself craving to be home and finding rest in home, a good book, an uplifting TV show. Even like creating. This is the creative phase. It's the nesting where we're homing and the creative vibes in the kitchen. And with any other project or hobby that we do, they're really going to feel more fulfilling and intense during this phase, 2 weeks of it. So just find out all those wonderful things that you love to do that rejuvenate you. And then the menstrual phase is, of course, actual physical resting. Your body needs to actually rest. Amp up your sleep, go for 9 or 10 hours of sleep every night, take the naps. If you're feeling cruddy, sit down and watch a good show, read a good book, but do not stay up late doing it or you will feel so depleted. So I hope that helped you think about those things so that you can get to learn about these things with yourself and how you're working. If you want more of this, read the book In the Flow. Love it. But I do just have to add, if you're on birth control, I hate to say it, but you're not cycling normal. You're actually stopping this beautiful, beautiful cycle. And I regret with all my heart those 10 years that I was on birth control and what it did to my body. So think about that, do some research, and consider other options. Anyway, I just scratched the surface, but that was really fun for me to talk about. I hope you got some great ideas. I hope you'll get out a piece of paper and start writing down the things that are actually really restful for you so that you don't grab or gravitate towards maybe the good things, but try to find the best things. Anyway, thank you, my friend, for tuning in to the Keeper of the Home podcast. And I will be back, Lord willing, to share more inspiration for the Keeper of the Home.